I know this every week because I do it, but half of you the guys are the ugliest group I've ever seen. So to get up here in front of you each week and to speak is, I get used to it, but for her to do it, that's just phenomenal. And to tell it so beautifully, beautiful story, beautifully laid out. And what again, godly play, this program that we kind of stumbled across 5 years ago, is told in this way, with these elements that the kids get to see it and touch it and engage God's story, as opposed to just hearing it or filling in blanks on a worksheet, which is the way that I was taught up, but just a way they can really get their hands on God and what He's doing in this world. I think it's phenomenal. If you have any interest in helping these kids learn these stories, I'd encourage you to do so. It's a great way. It's a great way to go back and revisit these stories. And each time the story is told, they wonder together about what the characters of the stories did as they sit in the circle. I wonder about this. I wonder about that. I wonder what God did. And it uses this beautiful language, and she used it as she told this story about while Joseph was going through his journey, God came close, and he came close to God. And I think that's just a beautiful phrase. God came close, and we came close to God. What a beautiful way to talk about those powerful spiritual moments where we get a chance to actually be in communion with God. So Ryan, great job. I look forward to the other little humans that are going to share their stories as we go through this summer every other week and hearing what you have to say. Also, it's great to have David back, talking about those moments where God comes close. We had a chance to be at his wedding. I told you this a couple weeks ago, but there was that moment in the ceremony where David is all up there and he's all teeth as he's smiling so big because he's realized that he's tricked this beautiful woman into marrying him, as every man has done in his life who stood in his position. And so congratulations. It's good to have you back. Good for you to be here. We had a great trip in Florida. Great time. Had a chance to take the kids to Disney World. We've been planning that for a couple of years. And just a great time then at the beach, sharing and relaxing and turning off. And spending time with one another down there. And so thank you for letting me be away. Jeff, I look forward to, just based on what you said this morning, finally getting a chance this week to hear the message that you shared. It sounds like it was a wonderful message as you talk about, hey, God gave it to you and you shared it. So thank you for doing that. Today we want to recognize our grads from high school today. And as I thought about that message and what I could talk about and just a little bit of help, this story fits perfectly, this story of Joseph fits perfectly with that message and that time where we prepare for that next thing in life. There are times in life, and this is one of those times where people ask you, well, you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for college? Or are you ready for the next thing? David had it. Are you ready for marriage? You ready to have kids? Yeah, right. Right? I mean, there are those things where we ask that question, and the question answer is almost always, not really, no, because there's that unknown, right? That territory where we've not been before, and we've all been there. Are you ready? Coming back from vacation, am I ready to step back into the week? No, I'm not ready. I kind of liked the rhythm of last week. I'm not ready for this. And so we go through these and we come up against these times in our life where that question is the question that presents itself. Are you ready? Are you ready? And then even if there are those few that say, yeah, I'm ready for this, and then shortly after the case, you talk to them, you say, well, how'd it go? You were ready? How'd it go? And most of the time, then the response is, it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. I wasn't ready. And so that is life. And so I want to share today part of God's story, which is Joseph's story, as he came close to God and God came close to him. But I also want to share with all of us, not just the graduates, but share with all of us the wisdom that we have access to in Scripture. And I want to use also Proverbs 16. And Proverbs is great for getting wisdom because it has so much of it. In fact, as I was kind of crafting today's message, I just kept finding Proverbs that connected with today's thing, and I just wanted to write them all down and read them all to you as I got through, but I didn't because I want to leave that for you to go and explore and listen. But this is what Proverbs 16 verses 1 through 9 says. It says, "We can make our own plans, but the Lord gives the right answer. People may be pure in their own eyes, but the Lord will examine their motives. Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. The Lord has made everything for his own purposes, and even the wicked for a day of disaster. The Lord detests the proud, for they will surely be punished. Unfailing love and faithfulness make atonement for sin. By fearing the Lord, people will avoid evil. When people's lives please the Lord, even their enemies are at peace with them. It is better to have little with godliness than to be rich and dishonest. And we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps." And that is the message today, and it's actually a message that we as a board are delving into and wrestling with, is the difference between planning and preparation. Because there is a difference. Planning, I looked it up, planning is the proposal, the detailed proposal for us to achieve or acquire something. So we plan all the time. In fact, if you go through life without planning, you're kind of foolish. And even, in fact, scriptures will say that. Don't go without planning. Jesus says that of choosing to follow him. He says, don't just follow me. He says, consider the cost of discipleship. Are you willing to actually do the things that I am asking you to do that are required of you to be a disciple? It's not just a prayer. It's not just an act of baptism. It's not just a church attendance. It is a way of life. And so are you willing to accept the cost that comes with this discipleship? Plan for that so that you may acquire it. Preparation, on the other hand, is the action of being made ready or being made useful. As I read that definition, I thought of something. I thought of the word integrity. And the word integrity means being used for that which you were created for. Okay? So we do this frequently. We take old, I've seen it with a number of different things, bathtubs, shovels. I'm from Missouri, so I've seen it done with toilets. But where we take these things that are old and unused, and then we use them for lawn decoration, right? Not a bathtub with integrity. Not what it was created for, right? The same goes with our life. Is your life one of integrity? Is it one that was used and is being used constantly for what it was created for? So are you being prepared so that you may be made of use, so that you may be useful? Because oftentimes what we do is we make plans, and this is what the Proverbs warns against, is be aware of the plans that you make, because in the end, it is God who has to approve the plans that you have made for your life. And are the plans that you have made, are they the ones that line up with what God has created you for? To have integrity. Some of the things that God calls us to live for is for the sake of love, for the sake of forgiveness above all things, for mercy, for justice, the fruit of the Spirit. I mean, there's so many things that he calls us. These are the things that you are to be for. In the story, it talked about that we are to be preservers of life. That's what Jesus talks about when he says that you are the salt. That you're not going to keep it from going bad, but you're going to preserve the life and keep life in it. That you will be a light in the world. You will not be the only light of the world, but you will be a light in the darkness. You are a part of something larger. Are you being prepared? And so as I thought of what that means, the difference between planning, and it is important to plan, and these guys have plans for their future, and we're going to share about that right before we have some cake and reception and a chance to congratulate them. But you have a plan, but the question is, are you being prepared? Are you allowing yourself to be prepared? And the difference comes in this. The difference comes when your plans fail or when they hit the fan, right? Because that's what happens. We make plans and then they fall apart. It's what happens every night at the Magic Kingdom in Disney World, right? Right before the parade happens, it is this universal chorus where every parent is looking at their kid and saying, "Stop crying, we're having fun!" Ah! But the plans go bad, and so are you prepared? Can you take the plans that have fallen apart and turn around and make them good? It's where this story in Scripture, it says at the end of it, Joseph sees his brothers and he says, "What you intended for evil, God has made good." See, you had a plan, his brothers had a plan that you were going to harm me, that you were going to bring an ill life to me, and you had washed your hands of it, and you thought it was gone and done, and now you're back face to face with me. And God has seen me through the evil plans and the evil desires of your hearts, and he has brought us back to this place of restoration. I assure you, Joseph's plan was not that he would grow up in a foreign land apart from his family, apart from the love of his father and his brothers, although some was lost, in jail, persecuted. I assure you that was not part of Joseph's dream. But Joseph, no doubt, was a dreamer. So as you think about being ready, I want to give you about 7 or 8 things that I want to encourage you that will help you in being prepared and help each and every one of us to step back and look at our life and say, am I in a place where I can be prepared? Where I have my plans, but my plans are not the thing that guide my life, but being prepared is. So that my eyes are always open. So that the course can continue to change as God directs and guides me in my life. So number 1, have dreams. Joseph had dreams. His were visions where God would speak to him, and this was his spiritual gift, where God would talk with him, where God would come close and he would come close to God. That God will come close to you, and so have dreams. You're at that great time in your life where responsibility is very few. Explore those possibilities. But here's the thing about dreams. Others are going to kill your dreams. It happened with Joseph when he went and shared his visions with his brothers and said, "This is what I saw." And they said, no, you didn't. We're not bowing down before you. You're the younger brother. The world will kill your dreams. Even people that are closest to you will kill your dreams. I think the reason that we do this to one another is because we have all had dreams that we have allowed others to kill. That they have died and we didn't see them fulfilled because someone else didn't have the same dream for us that we had or that God had for us. And so when it faced opposition, we just let it go. We didn't have the integrity to let it become of use in our life. So guard your dreams. Know that when you share your dreams, those things that are most intimate and special to you, others will strike them down. But make sure your dreams align with God's dreams. Make sure that you pray as Jesus taught us to pray. The prayer of the Lord's Prayer, where we say, "God, your will be done here on earth." That God, we don't just want to think about what it's going to be like someday when we live with you in the afterlife, but God, we want all the things that are good about you to be present and real here, and that I want to help make that a possibility. There's this thing in Genesis at the end of this story in 41. Also recognize where your dreams come from. When you dream and when your dreams are aligned with God's dreams, at the end of this story, he is in prison, he's in jail, and the ruler has these dreams. And Joseph is brought before him because the king's been told, the Pharaoh's been told that this man in jail can interpret your dreams, and he can tell you what they mean. And so the Pharaoh brings him in, and he says, I hear you can do this. And this is how Joseph responds. He says, it's beyond my power to do this. Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. And so Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. And he goes on to tell him the dream of the cows and the corn. Right? And didn't she do that with such, what was it? How'd you describe the corn? Good, delicious ears of corn. Like, I'm just like, I want some corn on the cob, for crying out loud now. And then disgusting. I think she looked at her brother, disgusting. Ears of corn. I saw her look at me too when she said fat cows. I'm just joking, Ryan. That our dreams aren't our dreams, that God has created us. And the scriptures talk about that small voice where God is whispering from the heavens the desires that he wants for us to have in our life. And when we allow ourselves to be still and know God's dream for our life, and we're honest about that, then we step back and we say, it's not me that does that, but it's my God that does that, and he just uses me as a steward. So have your dreams. Second, know yourself, that the image of God dwells within you. But here's the other side to that. So does sin. And the challenge for us is this. Take away all the trappings of your life. Take away all the things that give you status. Take away the brand of clothes you wear. Take away the car, the house, the job, the friends that you have. Take away Facebook. Take away all those things, and then who are you? Who are you really? Who is the core of who you are? Because we are a culture that hides behind our stuff, and we let our stuff be us. We lose our integrity because we make the stuff us, and we quit being who we are. And so I challenge everyone here to know who you are. Discover yourself. And be aware of the sin that is there. The Jews have a term, it's called Yetzar Hara. And it's this evil inclination, is the translation. And every human is born with the evil inclination. It's where Christians later developed the idea of original sin. But here's the interesting thing about Yetzar Hara. It's not evil things, it's the evil inclination. It's the force that men misuse and women misuse things of their physical body for survival. And so the need for food, which is not an evil thing, but under the Yetzar Hara, becomes gluttony. Where sex, although it is this beautiful thing, under the Yetzar Hara becomes lust. So we're born with this evil inclination that is there, and then they believe, and it's why they celebrate the bar mitzvah, and the bar mitzvah is that then at the age of 12 or 13, in comes to us, God gives us the Yetzar Tov, which is the good inclination. And it's that age of maturity and humanity that Jews believe, where then we are able to have the ability to fight the evil inclination, so that we may take all things that God has created, and in the story of Genesis, he has created it and he has called it good. And we may use it for good purposes, that it may have integrity, and not turn it to the evil inclinations and bendings of our own life and our own mind. And so there is this balance and this discipline that we must each practice. And in order to do so, we must know who we are. In addition to knowing who we are, third, you should know your fears. Know your temptations. It's not that you would go through life without temptations, for Jesus himself was tempted. But he was knowing the force and the prompting behind those temptations. See, in the Garden of Eden, it's not the snake who is evil when he tempts Adam and Eve. All he did was create an environment, make a suggestion. Yes, it was a lie, but the temptation that was there fell because they fell to the temptation that was presented. Temptation will present itself, but you must be able to recognize your apples. Injustice does exist in the world. You must be able to do the right thing. But here's the catch with that. Others will do the wrong thing and get rewarded for it. And you will do the right thing and you will be punished for it, just as we have in Joseph's story. That is a part of life. That is what is reality. It's what the writer of Ecclesiastes talks about, that the rain falls on the good and the evil alike. But God, in the end, will always hold the final saying. That's the promise there again of Proverbs 16. So have your dreams, know yourself, know your fears. Not that you can overcome your fears, but that you will be able to recognize your fears and that your fears do not run your life. They do not motivate you and direct you. Fourth, and this is probably the biggest one for me, is be honest. It's kind of part of knowing yourself, but being able to be honest and being able to speak truth, even when it's going to hurt. It's one of the things that for Cammie and I, we've had even at the beginning of our relationship where we've been able to be honest with one another, even knowing that when we were going to be honest, that was going to be hurtful or cause pain to one another. It's why part of, at least why the excuse that I use of why I broke up with her 5 times before I finally had cheese smile at the altar. And why I was fortunate enough that she gave me grace each time that I did in the relationship. But that you've got to be honest. Proverbs 24:26 says, an honest answer is like the kiss of a friendship. And we live in a superficial society. We live in a world that's around us that makes you want to not be yourself. And when you are honest, and all of us have met these people, and some of us may like them, and some of us may not like them, but when you're around people that are honest, that know who they are, and can be transparent, they often make other people around them uncomfortable because they will call you out. They will pull back the masks that we are wearing, and they will say, this is who you are, really. My uncle was great at doing that. And as much as it drove people crazy, people couldn't stay away from him because they knew it was true. Establish the patterns right now that you want for life later on. Joseph gets put in jail, and he doesn't shut down and sink into his depressive apathy or his depressive self. No doubt he had bad days and bad thoughts as he was sitting there in prison, but Joseph still knew how to dream. Joseph still had a fire inside of him for life, and it created for him the opportunities that allowed him to move on later on. Think about the things, the plans that you want later in life. Begin to establish those patterns for you now. If it's to have a spouse, I'd encourage you to go to Proverbs 31 that talks about the beauty of a godly woman, a godly mate who you can enjoy your life with. I have a wife of Proverbs 31. And how fortunate I am that I've got a woman in my life like that. Don't say, well, when I am rich or when I get this taken care of, then I'll give money away to the poor, then I'll give generously to the church. No. If you want to do that in your life, do it now, because if you don't do it now, then when that day comes, you will never have enough. You will never be able to start. If you want to practice hospitality, if you want to have good friends, then you have to do those things now, because then later on down the road, you will have not created that pattern and that discipline in your life to enjoy it when you want to. And so figure out what those things are, those dreams are, and then begin doing it immediately. Next, attitude is everything. What attitude should you have? Scriptures talk time and time again about joy. And joy is different than happiness. If you ask people what joy is, people will often say, well, it's like happiness, isn't it? And some people will say, well, it's like happiness, but it's not happiness. The difference is that happiness is in a moment. Happiness is related to a thing. With happiness, you lose that because you're stuck at Walt Disney talking about how much fun you should be having, because now you're tired and exhausted and cranky. But with joy can supersede happiness. Joy doesn't get blotted out. Joy is an abiding sense of what happiness is constantly in your life. It's the pattern of happiness. The moments or seasons of sadness, they will come in. They will tamper happiness down. They will cloud it up. But joyful people are always typically happy. They smile. They laugh. It's a result of hope and faith and love. Joyful people smile and they breeze through difficult situations. Not that they don't catch them off guard. Not that they don't find them frustrating and don't experience stress. But that they see problems as opportunities. That they don't see life's shortcomings as frustrations, but there's always something on the other side. So they enjoy life, and it becomes a pattern of abiding in happiness despite what the situation has. Nehemiah says, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And when you meet people full of joy, you'll find that they're hard to offend. They let insults roll off of them like water off a duck's back. There's a spring in their step. They're lighthearted. They're contagious to be around. When they do something, they do it with all the zest and the vitality that they have in their life. Joy empowers a person to be loving and kind and gentle and self-controlled and consistently denying their own selfish tendencies. Your attitude is everything. Next, I'd encourage each and every one of us here to find a mentor or mentors. To be a student of life. My grandfather said, make sure that you learn something every day. That God is continually teaching us something about ourselves or about life or about a situation, and can we be a student? It's what being disciple means. The direct translation is that you would be a student of Jesus, who is showing us the way of God in this world. Proverbs 15 says, plans go wrong for a lack of advice. Many advisors, however, will bring success. So learn from mentors, learn from people who are older than you. If you are older, there's a term out there called reverse mentoring. As culture continues to speed up and quicken and technology advances, I'd encourage those who are later in life to get a young mentor, to learn about the new ages that are coming up and how quickly things are changing, not so that you do them, not so that you get a Facebook status, so that you can understand, though, the world that is around you, and the world is quickly changing. Second, use Scripture as a mentor. Learn from the book of Ecclesiastes that talks about how everything is meaningless. And when you get your head around what that means in life, it's not a disappointed, shrugging, depressing thing, but it talks about just how life is so small And we must squeeze every opportunity out of it as we approach life. So learn from Ecclesiastes, learn from Proverbs, learn from all the stories and the communities of faith that have gone throughout the last 2,000 years. And as they have journeyed with God, let them mentor you in your life. Which brings me to the last point. The relationships in your life matter. Whether they are good ones or bad ones, they will affect you. Joseph was affected by his relationships with his brothers who were his family, who should have been seen as good relationships for him. They failed him. They stripped him of the plans that he had and put him in a place where he was completely at the mercy of God and others in his world. So relationships in your life matter, be they good or bad. Discern the difference. And make sure that you have boundaries in your life for all of your relationships so that you can keep yourself on this track as you continue to put yourself in that place where you are being prepared and made useful and are full of integrity for the sake of God. Are you ready? No, you're probably not. We never really are. But God is with you. God is making this journey with you, and he's giving you two great things. He's giving you Christ as an example to go before you, full of grace and mercy as you make your way, that you can always start anew and be reborn. And second, that he's given you the church, his community, his body of people that are willing to go with you through life, through the thick, through the thin, through the good and the bad, through the times of joy and the times of sorrow. And you have to be willing to trust in the church and trust in those things that God has given you as you begin each and every new chapter of your life.